this is how we break it down. You can't equate the Vatican right now to Catholicism. It's not Catholicism. It's modernism. It's Gnosticism. It's Masonry. It's Marxism. It's social. It's anything but Catholicism.
Hey friends, before we begin exposing the Vatican, New World Order, pedo agenda with Eric, this is from our friends at Rugged Reserves. It's the Patriot flashlight, and it is the last time it will be available to you. With 1200 lumens, it can be seen 2 miles away. It has an emergency strobe, and it's solar powered. You can even charge your phone with it with a handy USB port. It also includes a compass and glass breaker. It's the coolest tactical flashlight on the market today, and this is your last chance to get yours for as low as $49.99. Visit patriotflashlight.com. The link is below this video. Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning in. So much to talk about, and I'm glad to have you back because right now, Pope Francis has absolved 2,000 pedophile priests. And if you Google Pope covers up for pedos, the top return is the Urban Dictionary saying, does the Pope help pedophiles get away with their crimes? I mean, how in the world can that be the first return? Thanks a lot, Google, because Pope Francis is covering up for pedophiles. And I have back on the line our friend Eric Gajewski. His YouTube channel is TradCatKnight, and his website is TradCatKnight.org. And I spoke to Eric about a year ago, and you guys may want to check that out. We were way ahead of the game here with our interview called The Satanic Vatican Deception, which as of right now has 516,000 views. Eric, welcome back.
Appreciate it, Sean. And yeah, there's a lot to discuss today, and wanted to thank you for all that you're doing. I know recently that you just got kicked off of YouTube, but then you managed to get yourself back on, so I'm glad to see you back on. We need you in the fight. We need you to continue to exposing the New World Order, and can't thank you enough for doing what you do. And just so your listeners know, Sean will be on my show September the 3rd, folks, so look for that on TradCatKnight.org. And for those of you who don't know what TradCatKnight is all about, I am the #1 traditional Catholic website that covers the apostasy in the Catholic Church, the coming one world religion. I cover the real third secret of Fatima, Zionism, Islam, Days a Lot News, health, GMOs, prepper, geopolitics, economics. I'm sort of like the SGT report of the traditional Catholic world. So again, I can't thank Sean enough. So much going on in the world, and that's what we should lead off with today, Sean. This whole pedophile situation. But for us real Catholics who are not deceived by what's going on in the church, as this obvious satanic cabal has taken over the church. I mentioned in our last talk, Sean, right, the Satanic Vatican Deception video, that Father Malachi Martin alluded to this apostasy in the church, and he said just how deep it was. And if I could, I'd like to begin this talk by relaying or giving a soundbite from a discussion between Art Bell and Father Malachi Martin in terms of the timeline. When is the fruition of this third secret of Fatima going to happen? And this involves the coming one world religion, the biblical false prophet, right? Mark of the beast type of stuff. Well, Father Malachi Martin in this video clip gives us an indication, if I could, Sean.
Yeah, please do. And folks, for those of you who don't know, Father Malachi Martin exposed the fact that there is Satanism within the Vatican. So go ahead and play that clip.
Here we go, folks.
Can you tell us in a way that we can read between the lines with regard to the third prophecy? Is there a timetable that you are aware of that cannot speak of that we can read between the lines on?
Yes and no. It is not 200 years away. It is not 50 years away. It is not 20 years away. Number one.
Well, that's...
And number two, it involves the entire world system. It's not merely one area, not merely one religion, not merely one race.
Will be apparent to all.
All, without exception. Without exception, and it will be frightening.
So the gist of it is, Father Malachi Martin is asked by Art Bell, in terms of a timeline, just how far off is the fruition of this third secret of Fatima? And of course, it details the apostasy in the Catholic Church, this coming formalized one world religion. He says it's not 200 years away. It's not 100 years away. It's not 20 years away, folks. Now, this was in the late 90s. I think this interview was given 99. It was either 98 or 99. So we can see that what we are up against, that this is more imminent now. And this is why it's so important to understand this, because with all this pedophilia nonsense going on, which, by the way, is a beautiful Masonic Marxist plan to make the Catholic Church look stupid. This is what they want ultimately in the end, because the next step in the revolution, Sean, is to establish this one world religion. They're going to have new sacraments. They're going to have new everything. It's going to be people from all kinds of religions and so on and so forth. But the reason why I bring this up, Sean, is because Leo Zagami just emailed me this morning. I'm not sure if you got word of this yet, hot off the presses. Francis set to resign and to move down to Argentina. And this is something Leo and I talked about on my show a year ago, and now it's back up in the news apparently. So it seems like he's going to step aside. What's going to come in after him? Remember what I talked about last time on your show. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be better than Francis. And we may very well have this biblical false prophet character come onto the scene very soon.
Wow. I tell you what, here's the thing. This Pope announced that over 2,000 pedophile priests will not face criminal prosecution and may well be absolved by the Vatican for their heinous crimes. And this comes to us from prepareforchange.net, what I just read there specifically. But of course, we're not seeing this reported on by the mainstream media. They will really try the best they can to cover up, just as they do for the pedophiles in Washington, D.C. and the pedophiles around the world. The Jimmy Saviles of the world, the Sir Edward Heaths of the world, and the whole global pedophile network, ignored by CNN on a regular basis. And we can see what's going on just with the Vatican alone. And I wanted to ask you this. Who is this Pope? I want you to remind people who this usurper is.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I've talked about this last time I was on the show with you. I do believe he's a high-ranking Freemason, 33rd degree. Certainly his doctrine is Freemasonic. Everything coming since the Second Vatican Council, which was a purported, quote-unquote, council of the church. It's actually what Our Lady of Fatima was warning us about in the late, it was 1917, but then we had this council in the early 60s. She was warning people to pay attention because there were changes coming that weren't going to be Catholic, and people are being led astray by wolves in the church. This guy is a high-ranking Freemason. He gives all types of occultic hand signs, the Baphomet hand sign, that AOK hand sign, which is simply a pledge to Maitreya, the 666 hand sign. And then get this, I just sent you all this information, Sean, to your email. They had this big meeting going on. It was called World Meeting of Families in Ireland. I just called it the World Meeting of Sodomites because that's really what it was. And they had the 666 pastel vestments on. I mean, they're putting it right out in public. Remember how last time we talked about the Luciferians are putting it right out in front of our face? Well, this is another piece of evidence. Then I just emailed you a few hours ago, which I just got this information this morning. He's got a Baphomet mitre, the mitres in which the prelates in the church wear. And you could very see clearly the Baphomet outline with the rainbow-colored LGBT/Noahide colors, rainbow colors in it. And so, folks, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, the sodomites are here. This gay mafia club, the San Gallian Mafia Club, the same mafia club led by Cardinal Martini, led by Cardinal Daniels, that pushed Benedict XVI out. Here's a key piece of information that your non-Catholic audience doesn't understand. Benedict XVI had placed sanctions on these gay mafia people like McCarrick. And guess what Francis did? He whitewashed it. He went above Benedict XVI's head and said, no, I'm now going to actually, not only did he do away with the censure, Sean, he actually promoted Cardinal McCarrick. So now we have people in the conservative Catholic world that are calling for the heads of these people. Let me remind everyone, and Sean, you may not know this, but way back in medieval times, there was a Pope, Pope St. Pius V, who very clearly stated that the sodomite clergy should be put to death. You're hearing it from a Catholic, okay? I'm a Catholic. These people do not need to be in public. They should, in the very least, not only should they resign, they need to be thrown in jail, and they probably should have worse off done to them. We cannot have these people in the Catholic Church, folks. And what about the reaction, Sean? I'm sorry, I'm ranting here. I'm fired up because Francis's reaction to all this nonsense yesterday on the plane ride home, in terms of the accusations made against him, Sean, he says, I'm not going to say a word. You make up your own mind. Does that sound like someone who really didn't have his hands involved? Of course he did.
Well, it certainly doesn't sound like somebody who is a defender of Christ or a defender of truth or a defender of children. And we're seeing this now. You mentioned the satanic vision, the satanic plan coming into full view. They're not trying to hide it anymore. And I'm not even speaking about the Vatican specifically or the Pope. I'm really speaking about the New World Order. I'm speaking about the media onslaught against us, the types of shows they produce, like Lucifer on Fox. It's all in the wide open. And Tom DeLay warned us as it pertains to pedophilia. Tom DeLay warned us that there was a secret memo that he read.
Congress, I just want to get this straight. So you are aware of a Justice Department memo that says there will be an effort to legitimize or legalize bestiality, pedophilia, and, as you put it, perversions?
That's correct.
The secret memo says they are trying to mainstream. The plan is that powers that be are going to mainstream 12 perversions, including bestiality, folks, that's sex with animals, and pedophilia, sex with children. Tom DeLay warned us, and that was the plan. Eric, I've been saying, thank God that Hillary Clinton was defeated and Donald Trump is in the White House, because she would have fast-tracked all of this stuff. She already had her seventh-floor secret government in place at the State Department, which Trump dismantled, and with any luck, they're going to start making high-level arrests of these pedophiles and child traffickers. People like John Podesta, who Breitbart warned us back in 2011 when none of us knew how widespread this problem was. Breitbart warned us. He said, it's amazing to him that John Podesta isn't a household name as a world-class underage sex slave op cover-upper defending unspeakable dregs. And he was never sued for saying it because it's true. And none of us knew it back then. But this is how widespread this problem is. And Tom DeLay said they're going to mainstream it.
Oh, there's no question about it. The normalization of pedophilia on a daily basis. I just did a report. I don't know if you saw this one as well. I was down in the Kansas City area. I think, it was Kansas City, where they're now allowing people of both sexes to have basically a unisex bathroom. The transgender agenda is right in front of our face. I mean, there's not a day that doesn't go by that we see some type of Days a Lot news. Everything is being normalized. I mean, goodness, the filth that's on TV. I was just relating this the other day when I was on the Josh Tolley show. I was watching nightly news, 11:30 at night, not too late at night, and there was some like 1-800-sex number that came on right after the news. I'm like, folks, it's everything is right in front of us, and it really hits home to me as a Catholic, because here's another bit of information that your audience probably hasn't heard yet. And it hits home because I live in the Ohio Valley area, not too far from Pittsburgh, which was one of these dioceses that was exposed in that whole Pennsylvania scandal, where it was 300 priests, 300 priests and 1,000 sex abuse victims. And I'm not even going to get into some of the stories. It was just beyond your wildest imagination in terms of the perversity that was happening. But anyway, there's this one particular bishop that actually spoke at my alma mater 5 minutes away. And I've been telling people, of course, to stay away from these modernist prelates in the Catholic Church. His name is Bishop Zubik. Well, it was relayed by this one top journalist who's appeared all over the place. I mean, he's done USA Watchdog. He's appeared all over the place. As a matter of fact, you should probably get him on your show if you want. I'll get him over and see if we'll do a show with you. His name's George Neumeyer. Okay, and he's going to be on my show this Sunday night, and we're going to talk about it because he's got all these viral videos of him chasing down Cardinal Wuerl and the gay mafia, and he's getting the runaround. And this Bishop Zubek, get this, guess what his nickname was in this whole gay mafia clique? The French Kisser. Okay, this guy has done barbecues about 5 minutes away from me. This bishop, he's circulated around this area, so it hits home, Sean. This is why I get so fired up, is that these people surround us. They walk by us every day. You don't necessarily know it on the surface level, but listen, this is everything the Fatima message warned about. I'll have a second soundbite for you all to hear at the end in terms of the papacy being controlled under the influence of Satan, which Sean will play for you at the end. But Sean, I don't know where else you want to go in terms of, I don't know if you want to stay on the church side of things. I have some recent news that correlates with the Fatima message, Russia war games. But I'll let you lead. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make one clarification here. When I said that Tom DeLay warned us that they want to mainstream those 12 perversions, he also said they want to legalize those 12 perversions. So among those would be bestiality and pedophilia. This is Sodom and Gomorrah level stuff, folks, and it is the New World Order satanic plan. But I do believe that people are waking up in absolute droves, Eric, and that's the good news. Even people on the left are starting to, quote unquote, walk away, the hashtag walk away movement. They don't want to be identified with this open borders, this gun grabbing, with pedophilia, with Antifa, with violence in the streets. All right? Because what we have in this country is still the ability to have logical discourse. We have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights, and thank God for that. The biggest enemy of the people at this point, though, is the mainstream mockingbird media, which will not tell the truth, which continues to cover up for pedophiles, which continues to cover up for the crimes of Hillary Clinton and the DNC and her cohorts, and it has to stop. But because I have you on, and you do have special knowledge in this area, why don't we talk about this important news that the Pope is set to resign? What are the current cardinal candidates that you're seeing that may be this biblical false prophet? Like, who could they possibly pick to replace him?
Well, that's a very good question. We talked about this last time. I really believe that this Maitreya character is going to be your Antichrist. There's no world leader that currently fits the bill right now. But I emailed the website. It's called shareinternational.org, and I asked whether this particular character would be a cardinal in the Catholic Church, and they didn't give me any response. They basically whitewashed it. But in terms of potential, anti-popes, because I think it's going to be another anti-pope. I'm not quite sold that the biblical false prophet's going to show up yet, who establishes this one world mark of the beast system. We might have another 3 to 5 years to go because the Talmudic Jews are saying their messianic era will start in 2023, folks. That's 5 years away. That's not a decade away. That's not 20 years away. That means that's when the Great Tribulation would start, when their false Messiah will rule from the third temple. But, some names just to throw out there would be Cardinal Tagle, would be a potential. There's talk of Turkson, Cardinal Turkson being another candidate. We're just going to have to wait and see, well, first of all, whether Francis does resign. But, what's coming after Francis, folks, it's not going to be more pleasant. It's going to continue on in revolutionary fashion. What you can look for, Sean, is this in the upcoming year. There'll probably be women, quote unquote, women priests introduced into the church. And according to Catholic tradition, that's infallibly been condemned. Well, they're going to try to pull that off as well. So that would be the next thing to look for over the next probably I would say year to two. And they're also probably going to try to end priestly celibacy, which runs contrary to the tradition of the Latin Church. It's allowed in the Eastern Church, but it certainly would loosen the discipline in the Latin Church. But they're just going to continue on in that fashion, Sean. And because there's so many other factors which are coming together, and you cover them all. That's why you do such a good job. You're covering the prepper, you're covering the cashless society. These all elements are coming together at one, but the one I'd really like to highlight is the reality that the message of Fatima is coming to fruition. She said if this consecration wasn't done to Russia, that Russia was going to lash out and various nations would be annihilated. And just this past 48 to 72 hours, folks, Russia is going to be doing their largest war games since the 80s. They're going to be teaming up with China even. Then on the other side, Sean, you got NATO, who's recently done war games in the Latvia area. Then over the past 24 hours, we've seen the whole back and forth between Iran and the United States going back and forth because now there's talk of a potential false flag chemical attack down there in Syria, right? That's why Russia's sending all those warships down there. So that whole nonsense is starting up again. What I'm saying is ramping up geopolitically because I'm telling everyone this, and I know most of your listeners are not Catholic, but according to Catholic prophecy, we get attacked by Russia. Russia, with her secret weapons, will attack America and overrun Europe. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. I just want to put that out there for everyone to discern for themselves so that they can be right spiritually, get your communities prepared because things are ramping up quite readily. Sean, I'm sorry, I'm ranting.
No, it's good. I like it. And it gives me an opportunity to really think about what I want to ask you next. And I think one of the things I want to ask you next is about the Messiah mania that we're seeing in Israel. Here's the thing. I think those of us who follow the Jewish religion could easily make the argument that many Jews are sort of fanatical in the same way that Muslims are, and in the same way that Christians are often accused of being by the mainstream media. But we never see that story told by the mainstream media. And it's very clear that the rules of engagement are different for Israelis and Jews, right? They can build their walls, they can, have a sovereign nation, and the rules don't apply to them because every other nation in the world is supposed to just open their borders, right? In the EU, that's what Hillary wanted to do here. The rules are always different for Israel. And I'll even give you another example. The recent shooting down in Florida, in which some gamers were playing a Madden tournament. The shooter, I'm going by memory here, I don't have his first name. I think his last name is Katz, K-A-T-Z. It was widely reported that he was a white male. What was left out of those reports in the Western media is that he was a Jewish white male.
Right.
Now, had he been a Muslim or a Christian, I guarantee you, had he been a constitutionalist, had he been a Trump supporter, that would have been the leading headline. But the fact that he was Jewish was completely buried by the mainstream media. And I find it troubling. So let's talk about this extremism in Israel. They want to bring on their Messiah, don't they?
Yeah, no doubt about it. For those, again, who are not Catholic, it's in Catholic tradition. The early apostles, various saints talked about this, that the Antichrist would be Jewish, that the capital of the New World Order would be staged in Jerusalem. That's why you're seeing all these embassies moving down into that area, because that's going to be the capital of the New World Order once this, in my opinion, Maitreya character gets onto the scene. I know there's some that think Kushner is the one, like I had Adam Green on my show. I think you had a friendly debate with him. I had him on my show recently, and we discussed this because he covers Zionism as well. And it kind of ties into the whole topic of censorship, though, because we know who not only is putting out the fake news, so to speak, but we also know who's controlling us on the other side of the fence, not getting out information that might help form a better opinion, I guess is the best way of putting it. I'm trying to say this so Sean doesn't get censored again on his website. But the bottom line, folks, is Sean's going through it. I'm going through it. I just got another strike a couple of months ago on my YouTube channel, and it was in relation to exposing the Jewish element in the Catholic Church. And Sean hit the nail on the head. Listen, Israel won't allow immigrants into their country. They can carry guns, but look what they're trying to do in our country. And if you study what these particular leaders say, they say that they control our country. It's just the bottom line. So we can't fall into this whole nonsense of anti-Semitism when we're just trying to get out the truth. And yet we're having more and more of these Noahide laws passing. As a matter of fact, over just this past year, Sean, I think it's down in South Carolina, is going to be a law where if you say anything against Israel, you're going to be fined, or I think it's even thrown in jail. Would have to recheck that law. But those types of laws are going to be implemented here in the United States. And ultimately, it's going to be a one world socialist republic, as Pope St. Pius X said, under this Jewish Antichrist, with a one world religion, which, by the way, is going to have people from all religions under it, right? It's just going to be anyone who takes that mark and pledges their soul to this Luciferian initiation, as David Spangler said it. But yes, there was that article that you mentioned. Messiah mania hits fever pitch in Israel. This was just in the past month on WND, which is a more conservative outlet, I guess. But there's another rabbi saying, yes, the Messiah is here. And so they're saying this over and over and over again. And one of the points I want to stress on is when these rabbis say they have met the Messiah and his name is Yeshua, he's not talking about Jesus. He's talking about this esoteric character, which is going to be the sidekick of Maitreya, called Yeshua ben Joseph. And this is a whole other rabbit hole with the whole aliens and ascended master things that we don't have time to get into. But this is the guy who's going to rule from Rome, in my opinion. He's going to be the biblical false prophet that sets up this mark of the beast. So don't fall for that. That's how I think some quote-unquote Christians are falling into that whole Zionist heresy, because when they hear a rabbi say Yeshua, they're thinking that's our Jesus. No, they're talking about this New Age Jesus, this biblical false prophet character coming onto the scene. I'll allow you to jump back in here, Sean.
I want to circle back to something we started the call with, you mentioning the possible resignation of the Pope and him fleeing to, I believe he said, Argentina. Explain that to us. Why in the world would he flee to Argentina when you know, and I know, and most of our listeners know, that Vatican City is its own sovereign nation with its own laws? It is beholden to no other nation or no other laws. Same with the City of London. Same with Washington, D.C. So why wouldn't they just shelter him there?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know what? I'm just going to be flat out honest with you, because I know, or I believe that he's in on the game. Like, he knows exactly what he's doing as a high-ranking Freemason. He knows what's about to happen to Rome. According to Catholic prophecy, essentially Rome gets destroyed. It gets overrun. And again, per Catholic prophecy, Russia will be one of those nations that literally come through and take out Rome. So, people are going to be fleeing that area because they know what's about to happen. Now, according to Catholic prophecy, this is where I mentioned this last time, Sean. There's a growing number of us who don't hold Francis as the true pope. He's an anti-pope, which means he's a false pope. There's been 50 of them before in church history, and I was the first Catholic who had any sort of clout in the Catholic world that came out and said this guy was a true anti-pope. And I said years ago the trend would be that more and more people would be calling him an anti-pope, and this is coming true in the conservative world. More and more people are now saying, okay, yes, he's a false pope, a part of this gay mafia clique which ran out Benedict XVI. And ultimately, as I mentioned on our last broadcast, you got to pay attention to what is about to happen, because if there is an economic collapse here in the West, that means we're going to have the social unrest that Albert Pike said we would have, the social anarchy. You already see the Antifa thing. You see the anti-Trump Soros, funded movements all over the place. You see how they're trying to get whites versus blacks. They want to create chaos. That's the Freemasonic motto. Out of chaos comes order. What I'm saying, folks, is this is going to happen in Europe. So pay attention to the Occupy movements. Remember that? They're kind of like no longer in vogue. But there was Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Portland. There is an Occupy the Vatican. As a matter of fact, if you go to Google, just type in Occupy the Vatican and take a look at the flag. It's very much communist. And you see that fist being, raised, down with the clergy. Okay, that's going to pick up pace in that area. That's ultimately why Francis won't be in the area, and then Benedict XVI will have to flee into Europe. He'll be, in my opinion, the Pope, according to Catholic end-time prophecies, who will be killed. And the papacy, Sean, it won't be in Rome anymore. It's going to be somewhere else in Europe. In my opinion, it will be in Fatima, Portugal, because as Our Lady of La Salette says, Rome will lose the Catholic faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. So this is in Catholic prophecy that we're saying, listen, Sean, this is how we break it down. You can't equate the Vatican right now to Catholicism. It's not Catholicism. It's modernism. It's Gnosticism. It's Masonry, it's Marxism, it's social, it's everything, it's anything but Catholicism. So please don't look at the Vatican and say, oh, those nasty Catholics are doing it to us. They're not Catholic. That's what I'm trying to say. Real Catholics these days are few and far between. And so I'll conclude with that rant, but Argentina is obviously where he's from. Liberation theology is highly prevalent down in that area. And basically, according to the article of Leo Zagami, it's just everything's been prepared for him. Like it's almost like it was set up for him. Like he knew that eventually he would have to reside down into that area. And that's why Leo and I broke that story last year about this time. So we'll see what happens. And think about the outcry, because if he doesn't truly do anything about the situation, Sean, he just spinelessly walks away from it all. I mean, what does that really say about him in the end when obviously he's not putting his best foot forward and trying to get rid of the pedophiles? Why? Because more than likely he's a sodomite himself. And yeah, Eric just did say that.
All right, so let's do this. As we round out the conversation, I want to go sort of big picture here, and I want your thoughts. All right, the first thought is this, so sidebar this, because then I want to make a larger point, and we can come back. Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital and ordered the U.S. Embassy to move there. You probably talked about that with Adam Green. So I want you to put Trump into this question as I ask you the bigger picture question, which is this. The move towards communism and socialism worldwide has never been more obvious, and Hillary Clinton would have put the final nails in the coffin of our republic. She was going to round out this plan. Q has said it's pure evil. By the way, I believe that Q is legit. I do think there are white hats in the military that are aligned with Trump. that are trying to do really great things. Like, for instance, do you think for a second under Hillary Clinton that NAFTA would have been ditched and that a more equitable deal for the United States would have been made with Mexico, by the way, leaving Canada out entirely? And now I'll circle back to Canada and say those same hate speech laws that you described earlier in this interview, like you dare not question Israel, there's certain classes and types of people, transgender people, you can't criticize. Those hate speech laws are now rolling out under Justin Trudeau in Canada. So is communism, so is socialism. Hillary Clinton would have been right there the whole time. Final nail in the coffin. So my question is, what do you make of Trump and his declaration that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel? I hear a lot of people say he's a Zionist, he's in the pocket of the Rothschilds. I think it's far more nuanced than that. But I bring this up because I do think that is the one point of contention that causes me concern as it relates to this whole New World Order globalist plan and Israel's involvement in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Sean, this is where you and I disagree. I truly do believe that Trump and Putin are in on the game. I do think Trump is a 33rd degree Scottish Freemason. It's sort of like, kind of like back in those days with Bush, how like on the surface level there was a lot of decent things that he was doing, but you kind of study the Bush crime family. You knew what he was all about. We know he wasn't good, even though he was pro-life, and this and that. So for me, I believe the New World Order controls the right and the left. With Trump, they're basically just trying to get across certain agendas, such as building up towards war. I think he'll be pinned for this economic collapse here soon. And then, I mean, when you take a look at him, he's connected with Epstein still, just like Clinton is. I just had Adam Green on. We were talking about so many different elements of this, but, who was actually funding his early, real estate transactions and things like that. So right now for me, I try not to get caught up in that whole debate, really. If you're a Trumpster, that's great.
Let me jump in and just play devil's advocate on one point. I've heard so many people bring up the Epstein thing, and I talked about this specifically with Adam Green, too, and I really was combative with him about it. And I said, you send me the evidence and I'll post it. There was no hardcore evidence to suggest that Trump's relationship with Epstein is anywhere near as dark or as sinister as Hillary Clinton's and Bill Clinton's relationship with Epstein, where Bill Clinton went to pedophile Lolita Island on the Lolita Express, Little St. James, Epstein's pedophile island, I think 26 times, the flight logs indicate. Hillary Clinton went around 6 or 7 times, if memory serves. There's no evidence to suggest Donald Trump ever went to Epstein's island. So I just want to make that clarification, because we do see the Department of Justice targeting pedophiles. 2,300 pedophiles were arrested. I believe it was back in June of this year. We would not have seen that under Hillary Clinton. So again, I'm playing devil's advocate here with you just a little bit, because I see so many vast differences between this president and Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton would have been the easy choice for the Rothschilds in the New World Order, because she was their total puppet, and she would have just, like I said, put the final nails in our coffin. So why is this guy giving our nation a respite?
Well, like I said, it's just in certain areas. It doesn't have to be in every area. I mean, he's certainly promoting the New World agenda and the whole greater Zionist picture, if you will. I mean, certainly the step towards getting Jerusalem marked with an embassy out there. He obviously is in with Netanyahu. Another example would be when Macron came over here, another New World Order goofball who's throwing all kinds of Baphomet hand signs up when he came over with Trump. I put a 30-second clip up where he's talking about how he and Trump in the United States will help solidify the New World Order. And, Trump's right there just, clapping away. So it's like, I personally don't buy it, Sean, but I understand the whole lesser of two evils. And listen, there's no Catholic that could have went out there and voted for Clinton. And the sad thing is, exit polls suggested that 50% of Catholics voted for Clinton. Guess what? You're excommunicated by the church. The only vote that you could have voted, and I don't even know who else was in the race, to be honest with you, Sean, but Trump was the only legitimate guy you could have went with because of obvious the pro-life. So, a staving off of the New World Order, perhaps in certain areas, but what's going to happen is going to happen. And I got into a whole bit with Dr. Jim Willey, who seems to think that the New World Order is defeated on the basis of Trump. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I open up my Bible, and that's not how the New World Order gets defeated. The New World Order is going to get defeated through Jesus himself. It's not going to be through us or through Trump or anyone else. And certainly, I'm not saying that we shouldn't fight. We have to fight. I mean, I fight just like you fight. But, the bottom line is I try not to get too caught up into that, Sean. That's, I'm more concerned about the theological aspect of things. But, we'll just have to wait and see. There's a lot of people who think Kushner is the one, like Adam Green seems to think, he's the Antichrist. I tried to explain to him why he's not. But we'll just have to sit back and wait and see how things kind of materialize. I mean, whatever comes after Trump, it's certainly going to be worse. I mean, think about it. If there is an economic collapse, if there is all kinds of social unrest or this or that, and they plug some Looney Tune Democrat in there, there's no doubt we'll be in socialism, or Bernie Sanders or something. I mean, gosh forbid if we get like someone like Bernie Sanders in. And this is what we're being set up for. So, I don't know. It's kind of like Hitler too. Even we know Hitler was funded by the Zionists. So it's like they sit on both sides of the fence. It's really tough. So
no, I totally agree. It is really, really tough. And in the interest of having an honest interview where all viewpoints are welcome here, and I'll be I'll be a combative interviewer if I completely disagree with somebody. But I wanted to ask you because I do see that as a bit of a red flag that he declared Jerusalem the capital of Israel, and I know Adam Green's concerned about it. So just for folks listening, just because Eric and I don't see completely eye to eye on President Trump doesn't make Eric a shill or an idiot. We're all entitled to our opinions here, guys. This is complex stuff, geopolitically, spiritually. It's very, very complex stuff. And most of our friends, neighbors, and colleagues are ill-equipped to have this conversation at all. They don't know what the Federal Reserve is. They don't know what a central bank is. They don't know the history of the Rothschilds, the IMF, the World Bank. They don't know any of it, folks. So the Bank for International Settlements, they're ignorant of all of this stuff. So how can they possibly have a conversation about what's really playing out geopolitically in terms of biblical prophecy? That's why I like having guests like Eric on to help us break it down from his viewpoint. So Eric, I want to thank you for your time, and I also want to give you the opportunity. You said you have another soundbite to play, so please feel free to segue into that.
Okay, folks, this one is going to be where Father Malachi Martin is talking about the dark days ahead of us, how the papacy would be controlled under the influence of Satan, obviously the Judeo-Masonic conspiracy coming to full fruition, if you will. This is actually the interviewer of Father Malachi Martin is someone I've had on my show, Bernard Jansen, who was close friends with Father Malachi Martin. He's appeared on my show numerous times. Again, this is in relation to a pope under the control of Satan.
An apostate has rebelled against the very fundamental of faith and rejected God and Christ. We have apostates now who are papabili. Yes, we could have an apostate. But in that day, then we are into something terrible. We're into something which, Bernard, is something that, if you think on it in full knowledge of the meaning of your terms, is nightmarish. It would test the faith of St. Catherine of Siena. It would test the faith of the greatest saint. It would try the patience of Job. It will be a black day, a day on which you can clothe every window in black and put out the lights and dress in sackcloth and ashes and pray that you're spared, because your faith is going to be battered to pieces if that happens. Because then they have the prize and everything goes underground.
Okay, folks, that was Father Malachi Martin talking about a pope under the control of Satan. I just wanted to thank Sean for his continued efforts. And I also wanted to say this. Within the Catholic world on Trump, it's like a 50-50 split. I don't want to make it seem like I actually hold the dominant opinion on Trump. It's not the case. It's more of a split. It's kind of that same way with Putin as well. There's a lot of people who see the positives, but then also kind of see the negatives and are kind of just like sitting on the fence. So, it is what it is. Listen, we have to pray for our leaders, no matter who they are. Trump, whoever's in there, we've got to continue to pray for our leaders. We've got to continue to expose the darkness. We have to continue to expose the pedophiles in the church. And I want to stress this. The Fatima message in its entirety talks about how the church and world are overrun by darkness, how it's, this great storm that I call it about in my book, The Fortress of the Soul, is coming. Yet there is a great ending to the story. We know that good triumphs in the end, right? Per the Fatima message, everything will settle out. Good will prevail. Light will prevail. The whole world will become Christian again, essentially, is the message. And so that's what I always say. I say keep keep your wings spread as an eagle in faith and hope, because I know you're a positive guy, Sean, and I always get labeled as a fearmonger. I really don't know why. I mean, I just have to relay the news, but I'm very, I got a sense of humor. I'm always cracking jokes. I'm not like at all what you probably think I am by listening to me talk on the video shows. But the bottom line is, folks, get yourself a sense of humor. If you don't have one, go out and buy yourself one. You're going to need one for the times ahead. But continue to follow Sean's work. Look for Sean on my website, September the 3rd. Get to the new website. This is what I have to stress, Sean. A good number of my followers, although this is a traditional Catholic page, they're not Catholic. You don't have to be Catholic to sign up to my page. I got people interested in prophecy, whatever, geopolitics, economics. My new round of special guests starts in September, and Sean leads us off. He's the headline piece starting September 3rd. So get to TradCatKnight.org and also subscribe on TradCatKnight. For YouTube. I'm going to be doing some webcam live streams. Thank you very much, Sean.
Wow, well said. Well, thanks so much for the nice compliments, and I'm looking forward to coming on your show, and I really appreciate your time today. And, I do believe there is a lot of good news to celebrate. I want people to remember, Eric, how far we've come in just the past 3 years, okay? Because let's just think about this for a second. The Pope is trying to cover up for the pedophiles. It's widely known how huge a problem it is now globally, pedophilia, child sex trafficking. And here's how far we've come since 2015. Well, 2011, actually, because, I mentioned that Breitbart tweet about John Podesta. Nobody really knew what he was talking about back in 2011. And then in 2015, Jake Tapper from CNN, his wife Jennifer, was interviewed by the Washingtonian. You guys can Google this. I'll put a clip of it up here while I'm talking. And she told the Washingtonian back on February, I believe it was February 6th of 2015, that she and her husband Jake Tapper's favorite date night restaurant was Buck's Camping and Fishing, and their favorite place to take the kids was Comet Ping Pong. This was before anybody had ever heard the terms Pizzagate or Pedogate. And now everybody is waking up to this problem and the fact that the Mockingbird mainstream horror media continues to cover up for pedophiles and child sex traffickers. It's all coming to light, and that is the greatest gift I can imagine, Eric. Final word from you.
No, well said, Sean. Can't really add much to it. It's just, folks, really what it comes down to is control what you can control. I can't control what Francis is going to say. Sean can't control what Trump or Clinton's going to do, but we can control what we can control in our own lives. So I just suggest pray more, start to be detached from material things, because if there is an economic collapse, you're going to want to be prepared on every level. Get your communities prepared, as Lynette Zhang, who's come on my show multiple times, has said. You're going to want to be prepared on every level, folks. I'm not saying run around like a chicken without a head. Just prudently prepare. Who knows what's going to happen? They might attempt to put freezes on your bank accounts. I'm starting to see some news pop up in the alternative media circuit that's suggesting that. So, and I think you actually did a piece on that. Matter of fact, I thought I saw it on your website where it's no longer prudent really to keep at least a lot of cash in your bank account. And the same goes for everything else, Roth IRAs, and they're going to try to do away with it all, folks. So the bottom line is what the Antichrist is going to try to do is, A, he's either going to try to starve people to death because they don't take this mark, and you'll no longer be welcomed into society. You won't be able to go to your job. You won't be able to get health care. You won't be able to go to your dentist. You won't be welcomed anymore, and or will simply be sent to the FEMA camps. But again, remember, in the end, we triumph, and God's just he's purifying mankind. He's trying to straighten out the spinelessness that is so prevalently seen in Christianity today, and just kind of in general with men of goodwill. And that's why we need information like SGTreport and information like mine to get out there, to get it out to the public, and to say no to the New World Order, and to say no to their face, and to not back down ever. Thank you very much, Sean.
Yeah, amen. Well said, Eric. Thank you so much for your time. Guys, you can visit Eric and get all his juicy good information over there at TradCatKnight.org. And for those of you who are interested in real news, the antidote to corporate Mockingbird media talking points and propaganda, you can visit us at SGTreport.com 24/7, 365, and also check out thephaser.com, where I handpick excellent videos from people I respect and share those with you over at thephaser.com. And finally, thelibertymill.com. It's real news 24/7, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you all for doing what you can do within your sphere of influence to wake up others. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Brennan started this entire debacle with Trump. We now know that Brennan had pretty detailed knowledge of the dossier.